The crystal flute tumbled from my daughter-in-law's grasp the instant she crumpled to the tiles. Lauren's mom, Margaret, writhed on my polished granite floor, froth gathering at her lips' edges. And my soul thought raced. That surely wasn't meant for her. If you're tuning in to Shattered Voices, hit subscribe and drop a comment on your viewing spot. Before I dive deeper into the web of betrayal that nearly ended me, let me paint the full picture of who I am. I'm Eleanor Hale, 70 years young, widow of 31 years, and the woman who turned a two-person consulting gig in a dingy downtown office into a $25 million empire. I didn't get here by being soft, naive, or trusting. I got here by reading people like balance sheets, every line item, every hidden liability. And on the night of my retirement party, I read my own family like the frauds they were. 2 hours earlier, my kitchen had been a symphony of clinking glasses, laughter, and the low hum of a life well lived. I just closed the deal on my advisory firm. $25 million wired to my account before the champagne was even poured. Not bad for a widow who started with nothing but a Rolodex and a promise to herself after my husband, Thomas, dropped dead of a heart attack at 54. Our son Robert had insisted on throwing this bash. "Mom, you've earned the spotlight," he'd said. Those hazel eyes, Thomas's eyes, pleading with that boyish sincerity he'd perfected by age 10. "Let Lauren handle the details. You just show up and shine." I should have smelled the rot the moment Lauren volunteered to play hostess. Lauren, who once threw a tantrum because the dishwasher ate her manicure, was suddenly arranging peonies like a florist on commission and polishing crystal until it gleamed like her conscience never would. The party was flawless. 35 guests, a mix of old colleagues, neighbors, and a handful of family. Lauren even hired a bartender with a flair for theatrics, flipping bottles like he was auditioning for a cruise ship. "Nothing but the best for you, Eleanor," she'd gushed, her grip on my arm a little too tight, her nails fresh from a $200 salon, digging in just enough to remind me who she thought held the purse strings. I was mid-conversation with my former partner, Clara, dissecting the latest market volatility when I saw it. Lauren, hovering by the champagne table, her eyes darting like a shoplifter in a jewelry store. She slipped a tiny vial from her clutch, glass no bigger than a perfume sample, and tipped its contents into one flute. My flute, the one with the hairline chip on the rim, a flaw I'd never bothered to replace because it was mine. My blood didn't just chill, it froze solid. A smarter woman might have screamed, called the cops, or marched over and slapped the glass from her hand. But I've played enough high-stakes games to know you don't spook a predator. You let it think you're the prey. So I smiled at Clara, nodded along to her rant about interest rates, and kept Lauren in my peripheral vision. She picked up the doctored vermouth, her face morphing into a mask of daughterly devotion, and glided toward me. "Eleanor, you look exhausted," she said, voice dripping with syrupy concern. "Have some champagne. You've earned it." I took the glass, thanked her with a warmth I didn't feel, and waited. 10 minutes later, while Lauren was distracted flaunting a new diamond tennis bracelet to the neighbors, $12,000, I later learned, on a credit card she couldn't pay, I swapped glasses with Margaret, who was standing nearby, looking lost without a drink in her hand. Poor Margaret, always a little scattered, grabbed the nearest flute without a second thought, the one I'd placed right by her purse. 5 minutes. That's all it took. Margaret was mid-sentence, praising the champagne's unique bite, when her eyes rolled back and she hit the floor like a sack of flour. I knelt beside her as Lauren's scream pierced the room, shrill and theatrical. "Call 911!" she wailed, clutching my arm like a grieving daughter. Her performance was almost convincing. Almost. But I've seen enough liars in boardrooms to know the difference between real panic and Oscar bait. Real panic doesn't come with perfectly timed sobs and a glance to check who's watching. "What happened?" Robert demanded, shoving through the crowd. His face was pale, but I caught it, a flicker of something darker, a quick, guilty glance at Lauren that lasted a half-second too long. "I don't know," Lauren sobbed, gesturing wildly at her mother, who was unconscious but still breathing. Thank God for small mercies. The paramedics were there in under 7 minutes, a miracle in our suburb. As they loaded Margaret onto the stretcher, I studied Robert's face. 32 years of motherhood had taught me to read him like a weather report. Right now, he looked like a man watching his stock portfolio tank in real time. "Which hospital?" I asked the lead paramedic, my voice steady as steel. "Riverside General." "Family? Friend?" I shot a pointed look at Lauren, who was too busy hyperventilating to notice. "I'll follow in my car." Robert stepped in fast. "Mom, you don't need to. We'll handle it. You stay here. Clean up." How noble. Keep the target at home while they scrambled to figure out why their plan had hit the wrong mark. "Nonsense," I said, grabbing my purse and keys before he could argue. "Margaret's practically family. I'm coming." At the hospital, I positioned myself close enough to overhear the staff. Margaret's chart read, "Acute poisoning, etiology unknown." The doctor muttered plant alkaloids to a nurse, specific enough to scream premeditation. Someone had done their homework on untraceable toxins, probably scoured the dark corners of the internet for something that wouldn't scream murder and an autopsy. Lauren paced the waiting room, her designer heels clicking like a countdown to her own unraveling. Robert sat rigid in a plastic chair, his phone buzzing with text he ignored. "This is just awful," Lauren said for the 6th time, her voice cracking on cue. "Poor Mom, I can't imagine how this happened." I patted her shoulder, all grandmotherly warmth. "These things are often mysterious, dear. The doctors will sort it out." Then, casually, like an afterthought, "Lucky she only had a few sips of that champagne before she collapsed." Lauren's step faltered, just for a split second. "Champagne? You think that caused it?" "Oh, probably not," I said, waving it off like a pesky fly. "Just an old woman's mind connecting dots that aren't there." But her face had gone the color of spoiled milk, and her hands trembled as she reached for her coffee. Robert watched us like a hawk, his eyes narrowing as he tried to read the subtext. 3 hours later, a doctor emerged. Margaret was stable, overnight for observation. Tests were inconclusive, he said, but the toxins metabolizing out of her system. "Can we see her?" Lauren asked, hope flickering. "Family only, and she's sedated. Come back tomorrow." As we left, Robert walked me to my car. "Mom, stay with us tonight. After this, I'd feel better if you weren't alone." How touching. Especially since Margaret's accident had them wondering if I was on to them. The answer was yes, but they didn't need to know that yet. "That's sweet, Robert," I said, kissing his cheek, "but I'm fine. I've got that new security system, remember?" I slid into my car, watching in the rear view as he and Lauren huddled in the parking lot, their whispers urgent, their body language screaming damage control. Back home, I poured a real glass of champagne from a fresh, unopened bottle, naturally, and settled into my study. It was time to figure out what my darling family had planned and, more importantly, how I was going to bury them with it. I spent the night doing what I'd mastered over 45 years in business, research. Not the Google and spreadsheets kind, but the kind that comes from a steel-trap memory and a mind trained to smell bullshit from a mile away. Margaret's poisoning wasn't random. It wasn't an accident. Someone had planned to kill me at my own party, banking on a 70-year-old's heart giving out under the stress of selling her life's work. No one would blink at a widow dropping dead at her own celebration. But why? That was the $25 million question. At 5 a.m., I brewed coffee and sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad, listing everything I knew about Robert and Lauren's finances. It was uglier than I'd feared. Robert's architectural firm had been bleeding money since the 2020 crash, propped up by credit cards and wishful thinking. Lauren's jewelry boutique was less a business and more a tax write-off for her shopping addiction. They lived in a 6-bedroom McMansion in Oak Ridge, a neighborhood where the property taxes alone could choke a small business. Their mortgage was $12,000 a month, 4 times what they could afford on Robert's sporadic commissions. The Audi and Mercedes in their driveway? Leased, with payments 3 months behind. Lauren's little indulgences, handbags, spa days, private Pilates, could fund a UNICEF campaign. I'd help them, of course. What mother wouldn't? $5,000 here when Robert said they were in a bind. $50,000 for the down payment on that ridiculous house when Lauren cried about needing the right schools for their daughter Lily. $30,000 a year for Lily's private academy because public schools were beneath her potential. My checkbook told the story. $225,000 over 5 years. I'd called them gifts, investments in their future. Never loans. That would have been crass. But now I wondered if they'd seen my generosity as a down payment on an inheritance they were too impatient to wait for. The phone rang at 7:30 a.m. Lauren, checking in with Oscar-worthy concern. "Eleanor, I barely slept worrying about you," she said, her voice thick with fake tears. "After what happened to Mom, I just keep thinking maybe something in the food or drinks. You're feeling okay, right?" How kind of her to confirm whether her poison had missed its mark. "Fit as a fiddle, dear," I said. "Any word on Margaret?" "She's coming home today. The doctors think she ate something that didn't agree with her before the party. You know how she is with her meds. Probably took something on an empty stomach." Margaret Ellis was a lot of things. Flaky, overly chatty, prone to misplacing her keys, but hardly careless with medication. Her woman ran her pill regimen like a NASA mission. Color-coded containers, smartphone alerts, the works. "Such a relief," I said. "I was worried it might have been something at the party. That would have been a nightmare." "Oh, no," Lauren cut in too fast. "Definitely not food poisoning. Just one of those things." She was desperate to shut down any talk of testing the champagne, as if she knew exactly what a lab would find. After hanging up, I stared at the bottle Lauren had opened for the party, still 3/4 full on my counter. I could have it tested, get hard proof. I didn't need it for myself. I'd seen her pour the poison with my own eyes, but evidence could be a weapon later. The doorbell rang at 9. Robert, holding a box of croissants from my favorite bakery, playing the dutiful son to perfection. "Thought you could use some breakfast," he said, kissing my cheek. "You probably didn't eat much yesterday." I let him in, brewed coffee, and watched him move around my kitchen like he still belonged there, opening the same cabinet for sugar he'd raided as a kid, knowing exactly where the good mugs were. It hit me hard, a pang of loss for the boy who used to bring me dandelions and beg me to read Where the Wild Things Are one more time. When had that boy become a man who'd stand by while his wife tried to murder his mother? "How you holding up, Mom?" he asked, settling across from me at the table. "You know me," I said. "Takes more than a little drama to rattle these old bones." His smile didn't reach his eyes. That's what I was afraid of. Odd thing to say. I sipped my coffee and waited. Lorne and I have been talking about your situation, he continued, picking at a croissant. Your situation? You're 70, Mom, living alone in this big house with all that money from the sale? He waved vaguely, like $25 million was a burden. It's a lot for one person to manage. There it was, the opening act of their next scheme. I appreciate the concern, I said lightly, but I've been managing just fine. He leaned forward, all earnest son. Have you, though? Yesterday with Margaret, what if that had been you, collapsed with no one around for hours? The audacity was breathtaking. He was using their botched murder as a pitch for why I needed their protection. Robert, Margaret collapsed in a room full of 30 people with paramedics there in minutes. Hardly a cautionary tale about living alone. That's not what I meant. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous tic from his teenage years when he was about to ask for something he knew I'd hate. We've been doing some research. There are these amazing communities for active seniors, people around, activities, medical staff on site. The nursing home pitch. Thought they'd already bookmarked their favorites. Thoughtful of you, I said. Got one in mind?
Actually, yes. He pulled out his phone, showing me a glossy website for Golden Ridge. It's 20 minutes from us, so we'd visit all the time. Golf course, spa, book clubs. It's more resort than retirement home. I scrolled through photos of smiling seniors playing mahjong and doing yoga. They looked blissful, probably because they were doped to the gills. The catch, Robert said, is there's a waiting list, but if someone wants to move in fast, they need the full entrance fee up front. It's $450,000, but it covers everything: housing, meals, medical care for life. $450,000. A nice chunk of my liquid assets, gone in one signature. And once I was tucked away at Golden Ridge, who'd have power of attorney over the remaining $24.55 million? Who'd decide if I was competent to manage my own affairs? Sounds lovely, I said, but I'm happy here. This house has too many memories of your father. Dad's been gone 16 years, Mom. Isn't it time for a new chapter? His voice was gentle, almost convincing. If I hadn't seen Lauren poison that champagne, I might have teared up at my son's concern for his aging mother. Instead, it was chilling. I'll think about it, I said. It's a big decision. Robert's relief was palpable. Take all the time you need. Maybe we can tour it next week. Maybe. I stood to clear the dishes. I should call Margaret, check on her. Actually, Robert said quickly, Lauren asked me to tell you Margaret needs rest for a few days. The doctor said visitors might be too much while she recovers. How convenient. Keep me away from the victim until the poison was out of her system and her memory conveniently foggy. After Robert left, I sat in my study and thought about timing. They'd waited until after the sale to strike. Smart. If I'd died 6 months ago, the $25 million would have gone to Robert via my will, no questions asked. But killing me now, especially if they could plant seeds of declining mental capacity first, gave them leverage to contest any last-minute changes to my estate. The phone rang. My attorney, Elias Grant, returning my earlier call. Eleanor, how was the party? Eventful, I said. Elias, I need to see you. Soon. Everything okay? I glanced out my study window at the garden Thomas had planted 21 years ago. The roses were thriving, untended except for an old woman who, apparently, couldn't be trusted to run her own life. I'm not sure, I said, but I'm about to find out.
Elias's office was a fortress of mahogany and leather, 15 floors above downtown, smelling of law books and quiet power. He'd been my attorney for 21 years, through Thomas's death, the birth of my company, every crisis since. Thin, precise, with a poker face that could make a guilty man confess, Elias was the kind of lawyer you wanted when your family was trying to kill you. Tell me everything, he said after his secretary closed the door. I laid it all out: the party, Margaret's collapse, Lauren's vial, Robert's visit. Elias listened, scribbling notes, his face unreadable. "You're certain about what you saw?" he asked when I finished. "As certain as I am that I'm sitting here." He leaned back, tapping his pen against his lips. "The problem is proving intent. Lauren could claim she was adding a supplement, a flavor enhancer, something innocent. Without testing the champagne, we have no hard evidence of attempted murder." "Then test it," I said. "If we find poison, we prove she tried to kill someone. But not necessarily you. She could say she was targeting Margaret for insurance money or that it was meant for someone else." I hadn't considered that. Even with proof of poisoning, they could dodge a murder charge. "Attempted murder, yes," Elias said, "but there's another angle. If they're willing to kill for your money, they'll try other tactics, legal ones, like challenging your competency. On what grounds? Your age, living alone, the stress of the sale. If they can show a pattern of poor judgment or confusion, they could petition for guardianship. Once they control you, they control your assets." The nursing home pitch suddenly made sense. Isolate me, surround me with doctors who document signs of dementia, especially if those doctors were paid to see what the family wanted. What do I do? Elias pulled a thick folder from his drawer. "First, we document your mental clarity. I'll set you up with a geriatric psychiatrist who specializes in competency evaluations. Get it on record now. Then we get creative with your estate." His smile was sharp. "If Robert and Lauren want to play dirty, we'll make sure they're playing on your board." We spent 2 hours crafting ironclad trusts, medical directives naming exactly who could and couldn't make decisions for me, and financial triggers that would flag any unauthorized access to my accounts. "One more thing," Elias said as I stood to leave. "Your safety. If they tried once, they'll try again, smarter next time." Robert's offer to have me stay with them flashed in my mind. A grieving widow, distraught over a friend's illness, taking a sedative to sleep. So easy for an accident with pills. "What do you suggest?" "Security cameras, motion sensors, a panic button linked to the police. I know a firm that protects high net worth clients." High net worth. That's what I was now. Rich enough to kill for. Driving home, I checked my mirrors for tails. Paranoia? Maybe. But as Thomas used to say, you're not paranoid if they're really out to get you. My phone buzzed as I pulled into the garage. Lauren, her voice bright with fake cheer. "Eleanor, Mom's home. She's better, but doesn't remember much. The doctor said memory gaps are normal with this kind of thing." How perfectly scripted. "I'm so glad she's okay. I'd love to visit tomorrow." "Oh, she's not up for visitors yet. I'll let you know." Of course. Keep the witness silenced. I sat in my car, staring at the house I'd called home for 31 years. Thomas and I bought it when Robert was 9, dreaming of Thanksgiving dinners and grandkids running through the yard. The mortgage was a stretch, but we were young in love and stupidly optimistic. Now it felt like a castle under siege. But I'd been in business long enough to know the best defense is a killer offense. It was time to show my family what a 70-year-old woman could do when her back was against the wall. The security company arrived at 8 a.m. the next day. 3 technicians in unmarked vans, installing cameras, motion detectors, and a panic system that could summon cops in under 3 minutes. I told the neighbors it was because of package thefts. Believable enough in our nosy suburb. By afternoon, my house was more secure than a Tiffany's. But the real armor came at 2 p.m. when Elias's messenger delivered my updated will, trusts, and medical directives, all notarized and airtight. If Robert and Lauren wanted my money, they'd have to wait decades, and they'd get far less than they dreamed. The new will slashed Robert's inheritance from everything to a $55,000 a year trust, enough to live comfortably, not enough to bankroll their extravagance. The bulk went to cancer research, with smaller bequests to charities I'd supported for years. Lauren? Not a dime. I tolerated her for Robert's sake, but attempted murder was my hard line. I was reviewing the documents when the doorbell rang. The security monitor showed Robert and Lauren on my porch, looking like they'd aged a decade overnight. "Mom, we need to talk," Robert said when I opened the door. "Come in." They sat in my living room, Lauren perched on the sofa like a bird ready to bolt, Robert scanning the new camera in the corner. "Package theft?" he asked, forcing a smile. "You can't be too careful," I said smoothly. Lauren cleared her throat.
Eleanor, we've been thinking about Mom's accident. We feel awful having the party here. If something we brought made her sick. She trailed off, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. I watched her performance with the detachment of a critic at a bad play. She'd been practicing. I'm sure it wasn't anything you brought, I said. But what if it was? Robert leaned forward. What if the champagne or food was tainted? Mom, I'd never forgive myself if we put you at risk. Here came the next act. We think you should stay with us for a while, Lauren said, just until we're sure you're safe. Stay with you, how? Temporarily, Robert said, until we figure out what happened. I let the silence stretch, watching their faces. Robert looked genuinely worried. He'd always been good at believing his own lies. Lauren looked like she was one missed mortgage payment from a breakdown. That's kind of you, I said finally, but I'm safe here. Are you? Lauren's voice had an edge. You're 70, Eleanor, living alone. What if you fall or have a heart attack and no one finds you for days? The same pitch as yesterday. They were reading from a script. I said, "You're right," my tone thoughtful. Anything could happen at my age. That's why I spent today updating my will. The room went cold. Your will? Lauren's voice was neutral, but her eyes betrayed her. A brush with death, even someone else's, makes you reflect. My old will was outdated. Robert's face paled. What kind of changes? I smiled, the same smile I'd used when he was 8 and swore he hadn't broken my vase. Just some adjustments to reflect my current priorities. The silence was thick enough to choke on. I could almost hear their minds racing, calculating how badly their plan had just imploded. I'm sure you made the right choices, Lauren said tightly. I think so, I replied. They left soon after, promising to check in. From the security monitor, I watched them sit in their car for 12 minutes, arguing fiercely. Lauren made a call, gesturing wildly. Robert kept trying to grab the phone, and she kept shoving him away. I poured a glass of wine and settled into my favorite chair. Tomorrow, I'd launch phase 2. Tonight, I savored the first peace I'd felt in days. There's nothing quite like watching your enemies realize they've underestimated you. The game was just beginning, and I'd been playing it longer than they'd been alive. The next morning, an unexpected visitor. Margaret Ellis, pale but resolute, clutching her purse like a shield. "Eleanor, I need to talk," she said, no preamble. I made tea, studying her for signs of the poisoning. She looked tired but sharp, far from the confused invalid Lauren had painted. "Lauren told me I had a reaction to medication," Margaret said, settling into my armchair. "But Eleanor, I haven't taken anything but vitamins in years." "What do you remember about the party?" "Everything until the dizziness hit. The champagne tasted wrong, bitter, metallic, and I saw Lauren by the drinks table, fiddling with a small bottle." My pulse quickened. "What kind of bottle?" Like an eyedropper, the kind for essential oils, or worse. Her hands shook as she set down her cup. Eleanor, I think my daughter tried to poison you. Why do you say that? Her laugh was bitter. Because she's been obsessed with your money for months. How unfair it is that you have so much while they scrape by. How much easier life would be if something happened to you. The puzzle pieces clicked. Anything specific? Last month, she asked if you thought you'd updated your will. She was very interested in Robert's inheritance. I made a choice. Margaret deserved the truth, and I needed an ally who'd seen their greed up close. Margaret, I saw Lauren put something in my champagne. I switched our glasses on purpose. Her face went white. She tried to kill you, and I nearly died instead? Yes. We sat in silence, the weight of it sinking in. What will you do? She asked. I'm going to give them exactly what they want, just not how they expect. After Margaret left, I called Vivian Hale, a private investigator I'd used for corporate background checks. Eleanor Hale? Vivian's voice was warm. Heard about the sale. Congrats. Thanks. I need a personal favor. Everything on my son's finances, bank accounts, debts, investments, the works. A pause. Family digs can get messy. I'm counting on it. 48 hours. While Vivian worked, I set Phase 3 in motion. I called Robert, inviting him to lunch at our old haunt, the restaurant where we'd celebrated his graduation, his wedding, Lily's birth. He arrived jittery, checking his phone every 10 seconds. You sounded upset on the phone, Mom. Everything okay? I've been thinking about what you and Lauren said, about my safety, my future. You're right. It's time for a change. His face lit up. What kind of change? I looked into Golden Ridge, called them this morning. That's amazing, Mom. You'll love it. There's an opening, but it's first come, first serve. I'd need to pay the fee by Friday to lock it in. His excitement was electric. That's no problem, right? You've got the sale money. Of course, it's just a big step. I was hoping you and Lauren could help with the paperwork. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Absolutely. We're here for you. I smiled, memorizing his face. In a few days, that eager grin would be a distant memory. One thing, I added, the facility requires a power of attorney on file, someone to make decisions if I can't. Would you do that for me? Of course, Mom. Anything. Perfect. He thought he was hurting me into handing over my fortune. He was walking into my trap. Vivian called Thursday with her report. It was worse than I had imagined. They're drowning, she said. The house has been refinanced 3 times. 2 mortgages, a maxed-out equity line. Credit card debt tops $90,000. Robert's firm hasn't turned a profit in 2 years. They're paying cards with cards. How are they still afloat? Barely. And get this, Lauren took out a $500,000 life insurance policy on you 6 months ago with her as the beneficiary. My stomach lurched. How's that legal? She claimed insurable interest as your daughter-in-law and caregiver. The insurer probably assumed Robert was the real beneficiary. 6 months. They'd been planning my death long before the party. There's more, Vivian said. Robert's been paying a Dr. Victor Lang, a geriatric psychiatrist, for consultations starting 3 months ago. Victor Lang. I'd ask Elias about him. That afternoon, Robert and Lauren arrived with a briefcase of Golden Ridge paperwork, spreading it across my dining table like a battle plan. This is the admission contract, Lauren said, pointing to a thick stack. And this discloses your assets for fee calculations. I scanned it. They wanted access to everything. The power of attorney's here, Robert said, sliding over another document. Standard stuff. Gives me authority over your finances if you can't manage. I read it carefully. It wasn't standard. It gave him immediate control over my accounts, investments, everything. This is broad, I said. Do I need to give you this much power? It's just a precaution, Robert said. The facility requires it, and at your age, it's smart to have someone younger handling the complex stuff. At my age? What if I change my mind about Golden Ridge? Can this be revoked? They exchanged a glance. Technically, yes, Lauren said, but there are medical evaluations, waiting periods. It's complicated. Of course. Sign and I'd be trapped. My money in their hands, my freedom at the mercy of a paid-off shrink. I need to sleep on it, I said, gathering the papers. It's a big decision. Robert's face fell. Mom, we have to submit by tomorrow to secure the unit. I'll let you know in the morning. After they left, I called Elias. What do you know about Dr. Victor Lang? Geriatric psychiatrist, specializes in competency evaluations. He's known for flexible opinions when families push for guardianship. He's on their payroll. I can't say officially, but I've seen his reports used to strip elderly clients of their rights. The plan was clear. Move me to Golden Ridge, control my money, and if I fought back, have Lang declare me incompetent. It was brilliant. If I hadn't seen the poison, I'd have signed my life away. Elias, I need something by tomorrow, something that'll end this. What kind? The kind that buries them. That night, I reviewed my plan one last time. Everything had to be perfect. Tomorrow, Robert and Lauren would get exactly what they deserved. But first, one final call to the police, tipping them off about a suspicious incident at my party and a bottle of champagne that needed testing. Friday morning was gray and drizzly, the sky heavy with omen. Robert and Lauren arrived at 9 sharp, dressed like they were closing a merger. Have you decided, Mom? Robert asked, barely containing his glee. I have. I pulled out the Golden Ridge paperwork, signed and notarized. You're right. It's time for a new chapter. Lauren's relief was palpable. Oh, Eleanor, you're going to love it. I'm sure. And Robert, I signed the power of attorney too. His hand shook as he took the papers. This is the right call, Mom. We spent an hour on financial forms, Lauren typing furiously as I fed her account numbers. Their glances were pure Christmas morning. One last thing, I said. I need to sign some tax documents with Elias before the transfer's final. Of course, Robert said. Want us to drive you? He's coming here, any minute.
The doorbell rang, not Elias, but Detective Nora Blake and her partner. Miss Hale, we need to discuss an incident at your home this week. Robert stood fast. What incident? Suspected poisoning, Blake said, eyes flicking between them. A medical emergency at your party. Lauren went ghost white. That was my mother. A medication reaction. The doctor said it wasn't serious. Actually, Blake said, pulling out a notebook, toxicology shows oleander extract, a deadly poison, not a medication. And the champagne bottle from the party, same poison. Robert stared at Lauren, horror dawning. Lau, what did you do? Nothing, she shrieked. This is insane. Why would I poison my own mother? We're working on that, Blake said, especially since the glass with the highest concentration was meant for Miss Hale. There's more, I said quietly. Detective, show them the insurance policy. Blake produced a document. Mrs. Hart, you took out a $500,000 policy on Miss Hale 6 months ago.
That's motive. Lauren looked ready to collapse. Eleanor, tell them this is crazy. I met her gaze. This woman who'd faked love while plotting my death. I saw you poison my glass, Lauren. I switched our drinks. Robert's head snapped up. You knew? For days. I know about your debts, Dr. Lang. Your plan to have me declared incompetent. Everything. The power of attorney slipped from Robert's hands. Mom, I didn't know about the poison, I swear. But you knew about the rest? The nursing home? The money grab? His silence was confession. Blake stepped forward. Lauren Hart, you're under arrest for attempted murder. As they cuffed her, she spat at me. You think you're clever. You've ruined everything. No, Lauren. I protected myself.
After the police took Lauren, Robert sat in my living room, shattered. She said it was about keeping you safe, he mumbled, that you were forgetting things, making bad choices. She said the money was to protect you too. His face crumpled. We're drowning, Mom. The business is dead. We're behind on everything. Lauren said if you died naturally, we'd inherit enough to restart. She'd never mentioned, he gestured weakly, murder. But you were fine with scaring me into a nursing home. He looked up, tears streaming. I'm sorry. I never wanted you hurt. I wanted to believe him, to see the boy who'd once built me a lopsided birdhouse for Mother's Day. But I'd survived too many boardroom sharks to ignore the red flags. Show me your phone. What? Your texts with Lauren? Last week? He hesitated, then handed it over. I scrolled, my heart sinking deeper with every message. Lauren, talk to Mom about Golden Ridge? Robert, she's considering. Good, she's asking too many money questions. Robert, what if she says no? Lauren, she won't, not after tomorrow night. Robert, what's tomorrow? Lauren, trust me. By Sunday, she'll beg us to take care of her. I handed it back. You knew she was planning something for the party. His shoulders sagged. I thought she meant a fake break-in, maybe a fall, something to scare you into moving to Golden Ridge. You were okay with staging my trauma? Not murder, he whispered, just persuasion. The casual cruelty of it froze my blood. My son had greenlit terrorizing me for money. I said there's more. What? Vivian dug into your finances. The debts, the failing firm, the fact that you've been living a lie for years, and the payments to Dr. Lang, 3 months before you ever mentioned Golden Ridge. You were planning to have me declared incompetent from the start. He buried his face in his hands. Lauren said it was a backup in case you got difficult. Difficult meaning I wouldn't hand over my money. The truth was a guillotine. One last thing, I said. The power of attorney you're holding, it's fake. Elias drafted it to give you control of a bank account with exactly $1. My real money is locked in trusts you can't touch. The will you're so worried about leaves you $55,000 a year. And if you're convicted of conspiracy, even that's gone. Robert stared, broken. You've destroyed me. No, Robert, you destroyed yourself. I just made sure you didn't take me with you. Watching him crumble, I felt no triumph, only a bone-deep grief for the son I'd lost to greed. After the police took Lauren, Robert sat in my living room, shattered. She said it was about keeping you safe, he mumbled, that you were forgetting things, making bad choices. She said the money was to protect you too. His face crumpled. We're drowning, Mom. The business is dead. We're behind on everything. Lauren said if you died naturally, we'd inherit enough to restart. She'd never mentioned, he gestured weakly, murder. But you were fine with scaring me into a nursing home. He looked up, tears streaming. I'm sorry.
I never wanted you hurt." I wanted to believe him, to see the boy who'd once built me a lopsided birdhouse for Mother's Day, but I'd survived too many boardroom sharks to ignore the red flags. "Show me your phone." "What? Your texts with Lauren last week?" He hesitated, then handed it over. I scrolled, my heart sinking deeper with every message. Lauren, talk to Mom about Golden Ridge. Robert, she's considering. Good, she's asking too many money questions. Robert, what if she says no? Lauren, she won't, not after tomorrow night. Robert, what's tomorrow? Lauren, trust me, by Sunday, she'll beg us to take care of her. I handed it back. You knew she was planning something for the party. His shoulders sagged. I thought she meant a fake break-in, maybe a fall, something to scare you into moving to Golden Ridge. You were okay with staging my trauma? Not murder, he whispered, just persuasion. The casual cruelty of it froze my blood. My son had greenlit terrorizing me for money. I said there's more. What? Vivian dug into your finances. The debts, the failing firm, the fact that you've been living a lie for years, and the payments to Dr. Lang, 3 months before you ever mentioned Golden Ridge. You were planning to have me declared incompetent from the start. He buried his face in his hands. Lauren said it was a backup in case you got difficult. Difficult meaning I wouldn't hand over my money. The truth was a guillotine. One last thing, I said. The power of attorney you're holding, it's fake. Elias drafted it to give you control of a bank account with exactly $1. My real money is locked in trusts you can't touch. The will you're so worried about leaves you $55,000 a year. And if you're convicted of conspiracy, even that's gone. Robert stared, broken. You've destroyed me. No, Robert, you destroyed yourself. I just made sure you didn't take me with you. Watching him crumble, I felt no triumph, only a bone-deep grief for the son I'd lost to greed.